Hey mages, welcome to today's Budget Arena video. Today I've got 5 decks for you that are super budget. They're meta decks, they get really good results, anything between 60 and 70%. These decks are, really performing well for the amount of rares that they have. The deck with the most rares out of the 5 is 11, and it goes all the way down to a deck that has just one single rare in. But as we know, 11 rares still is not a lot of rares when you compare it to the top meta decks. They're all running anything 25, 30 plus 35 rares in some of those decks as well when you include the lands. But these decks are still performing really well on the meta, and they're just for us budget players. And it's good when you can be able to play a deck that is competitive and still manage to rank you up as well. And I always love hearing about your results when you take these decks and take them to the ladder. So make sure once you play which one you like, hit me in the comments and let me know which ones they are. Now, I will like to say, if any of you are paper Magic players out there, please have a look at Cardmarket. They are the largest marketplace. You can trade and sell your cards on there. So if you want to take one of these decks to your F&M, it's a really good place to go and get your cards. So follow my link down below. That really supports the channel as well. But without further ado, let's get on to the first deck. And it is Boros Prowess. Now, I say Boros, it's basically mono red with Monastery Mentor. That is the only white card in the deck. When I found this deck and sourced it out, I was like, it's a bit of a shame to call it Boros. It should be mono red white, but we're calling it Boros because it is the actual colours. And in this, we have 11 rares. So the rares in the deck are Monastery Mentor, very good. And it makes the Prowess deck, you could go mono red potentially, but adding this mythic in there, it is so powerful. It's a 2/2 that whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you create a 1/1 monk, and that token has Prowess as well. So that makes it even better. And it has a full 4 of in these. You can have multiples on the field. They're not legendary. They're just really cool. The other rares in the deck, we have a 3 of Chandra Dress to Kill. It's a mythic as well. Very good card though. 3 mana. You can +1 to add a bit of mana and 1 damage. You can also +1 to exile the top card. If it's red, majority, as you can see, apart from 4 cards are red. You might be able to cast it that turn. And the -7 is a big one of exiling 5, and you may cast red spells. Among them, you get an emblem whenever you cast a red spell, deals X damage to any target, or X is the amount of mana cast to cast that spell. Wow, I said that all out right. And the only other rare in the deck is the land, Battlefield Forge. So 4 of them as well. So these are in there to make the deck more consistent. But like I say, if you want to save yourself 4 more rares, it won't be as consistent, but you can change them for more basics. It's completely and entirely up to you. But the decks that I've sourced on the internet that have been getting good stats have been with the Battle Forge in there. So Prowess, we have other creatures with Prowess as well. Monastery Swiftspear, one of probably the best uncommon creature in the set, without a doubt. Just brilliant. A reprint into standard. And then we have, where is it? Kenra. So Kenra Spellspear, 2/2. Now, we don't run blue, but it's 3 in Phyrexia mana, so you can pay the 2 with the life instead, and then transform it. 2/2, Trample Prowess. Goes into Cataxian Spellstalker that has Trample, War 2, so has protection, and then Prowess. I mean, I think this was the first time we saw Prowess. I might not be completely right in that, but it's the first time I saw it when this card was spoiled. Let me know of any cards that did have that as well, if you know of any. But yeah, it turns into a 3/3 and then can just get severely out of hand. And the trample on both sides of this card make it really, really strong. So also in the deck, we have a few more creatures. Swordblade Scamp has haste whenever you cast a non-creature spell. You get to put an aura counter on it. Remove an aura counter, 1 damage to each opponent. So that is a card that can build up with the non-creature spells. And then casting non-creature spells with Kessig on the field is great as well, because it does 1 damage to each opponent as well. So you're doing damage all over the spot in this deck. Now, if we have a look at the stats, it's 19 creatures and 21 non-creature spells, and it runs 20 lands. The CMC of only 1.8 in this deck is pretty good. So the spells that are going to be casting off with this, Ancestral Anger, good for getting trample for the Swiftspear, the Scamp, and the other cards like Monastery that doesn't have trample. This is a really good card. Kumano features in most red aggro decks of any kind. 1 damage to each opponent. Something comes in with a counter, then it exiles and becomes a hasty etching of a creature as well. Then we have Play with Fire, nice early 1-drop that can do 2 damage and scry to in case you need to find a land or find something else in your hand. If you've kept a hand that needed a little bit of help, shall we say. That's my kind of keep, as you well know from the gameplay you watch of me. Lightning Strike, more damage there for 4 of these straight in there, 3 damage to any target, and then it has a couple of Stoke the Flames at the top end, but this does have Convoke, and when obviously you're playing tokens with Mentor, you can just use them to do the damage, and it's a good way sometimes to finish a game off. Land base, very simple, 13 mountains, 3 plains, and the 4 Battlefield 4s, like I said. So if you like aggro, very aggressive decks, this is like the type of deck that you want to get to be playing. It does have 7 mythic casts, so we know mythic scores. Hopefully you've got some of these. You could probably get away with 3, if you're building up to this deck and you want to keep it playing. A number of them will be good. You'll be able to maybe up the Stoke the Flames if you're missing the cover, maybe add in some more burn or something like that if you can as well. But yeah, the deck as is got the stats that I found really good, 60 between 60 and 70%, and it's just very consistent as well. Long game doesn't go long game so great, this deck, but early game getting the wins in as quickly as you can and then just getting your wins. But let's get on to the next deck with even less rares. So this is Red Black Kingpin, and this just has the 10 rares. So the 3 rares is a card that I haven't crafted, and it's a card that I've never saw before. This is a new card from Aftermath. Obnicholas Captive Kingpin. So a 4/3 flying trampler is great for 4 mana. Whenever one or more opponents each lose exactly 1 life, put a 1/1 counter on it, exile the top card of your library until the end of your next end step, you may play that card. So we have cards in here that do 1 damage. So let's have a little look. Kumanu. Fancy seeing that in a red deck. This does the 1 damage and works very well with Obnicholas. Swordblade Scamp, we can remove an oil counter and do 1 damage. So the good thing about this deck, there's a lot of transferring cards from the first deck, so you might be able to even put, maybe 2 together. It uses the Chandra Dress to Kill, so that is a good mythic to craft because you can play it in both of those other 2 decks as well. Chandra is a 3 of in here and a 3 of in the previous deck as well. So you're getting a rare that you potentially could build 2 decks together because there's a lot of commons and uncommons in this deck as well. Other rare in the deck is a 4 of Bloodthirsty Adversary. Haste, enters the battlefield, pay 3 a number of times. When you do cast it 1 or more times, you can put that 1/1 counters on it. Exile that many target instant sorcery cards with value 3 or less. Copy it, cast them without paying them mana costs. I have really found the decks today that have a lot of text on the creatures, haven't I? But yeah, this is in there. 2/2 hasty, can be bigger, coming down and doing the aggro damage as well. So that is the 10 rares, the 4 of them, the 3 of them, and the 3 of the Obnicholas as well. But this obviously, like I said, can transfer over with the other deck. So also in the deck, you want to be doing like the 1 damage. So you got Invasion of Asgore, enters the battlefield, target player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, and they lose 1 life as well. So this deck has a lot of synergy based around Obnicholas, and it seems a really fun deck, and I could see it when it going off and you've got your Obnicholas down there and you're just doing that exact 1 life to ping around, and this becomes massive and you're going in maybe for that Alpha Strike flying trample win. It seems pretty cool. Thermo Alchemist is great, deals 1 damage to each opponent. You can tap, untap when you're casting your instant or sorceries, so more synergy for the Obnicholas as well. This for me is just a very, very fun deck. Rending Flame, 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that permanent's a spirit, Rending Flame also deals 2 damage to the permanent's controller, so 3 damage. Doesn't do obviously opponent, but that's what you have 4 Stoke the Flames of. That you will be able to do that with that as well. Late game, a lot of damage with these. Obviously, having 4 of these in your deck, that's a potential 16 damage there. And then meanwhile, you'll be pecking away with your Chandra doing 1 damage, everything else doing 1 damage, leading into your end game. Hopefully, of Obnicholas, if it can stay on the field and stay away from all that removal. But you do have a lot of other ways to do damage and get wins, like Thermo, attacking in with Bloodthirsty, and you burn like Stoke the Flames and play with fire as well. And there's also Flame Discharge, deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker if you control a Modi creature, which is gets the counters on, so anything with a counter, like Obnicholas, it deals X damage plus 2 damage instead. So that's pretty cool. pretty sweet card. Land base, very simple on this one. 14 plains. 14 plains? There's no plains in this deck. 14 mountains and 8 swamps as well. So you could obviously upgrade the land base is a way to make this, but this is what been getting wins as is. So with this budget, I search out these decks that are helpful. Really low on the rare wildcards. I try to keep it under 10 if I can, but we all know, like I said at the start of the videos, 30, 40. So if you're going 11 rares, 10 rares, anything like that, these decks are really good. And luckily with this one, it has a bit of crossover with the other deck, so you will be able to just potentially on your way to building both decks. But let's get on to our next deck. So now we're going down to 8 rares, and it is Izzet. Izzet has it's very aggro. It's a very aggro format now with a lot of the bans and everything like that. And yet again, with the first 2 decks, you're getting more crossovers. So you're getting cards like Kemra Spell Spear again, because in that type of Spells Matters deck, this is really good. And it's good to see that a lot of these decks, you'll be able to, potentially get on your way to building multiples of these decks if you can. And then it gives you a lot more variety in your gameplay. Now, a lot of the same cards, but there's like little differences between them all. So this one is working on with bit of Delver, adding in cards that are making tokens, because Third Path Iconoclast is one of the main cards for this deck. It's brilliant. Cast a non-creature spell, create that 1/1 soldier, and that is whenever you do it. So you've got a lot of low mana spells. You've got protection with Shore Up to try and protect your Third Path, which is one of the creatures that you do really want to keep on the field, as well as this one. This runs Balmor, Battle Mage Captain. So whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/0 and Trample. Now, Trample is great because you've got little creatures. Potentially they could get bigger, but then adding that Trample really does help in getting the win down. You're going turn 1 if you can with the Delver. Just 2 of them in the field, but one, hopefully your Monetary Swift Spear, and then you're adding in one of these and then start, hopefully, building up a board, going wide strategy, and just swarming your opponent. So the rares in this is 8, and the 8 rares, interestingly, are in the lands. So it's 4 Shivan Wreath, 4 Storm Carved Coast, because you've got a lot of 1-drops and 2-drops in here, and you don't really want to be missing with colour, which is why I think this deck runs the rare lands in here, so it really will help you, casting those cards. Shivan Wreath can obviously come in untapped, will do 1 damage to you, but will be able to cast any of those 1-drops turn 1, which would be really good. The Coast enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands, so good for like a turn 3 play. If you've got nothing great turn 1, you can play that turn 1 tapped and then start going in turn 2 with a Third Path in. If you can, always try and have a protection spell with that, because that is a card that obviously your opponents will obviously target. Now, loads of burn in this as well. Play with Fire 4, Lightning Strike 4, Stoke the Flames 4. So even if these don't stay on the field, as long as you've got a little bit of damage in, you're just going to burn your opponent out with these. You have Consider to try and find the cards you need. Nice little 1-drop. And later game when you turn 4, turn 5, and you've got this on the field, if you've got a lot of these in hand, you're churning spells out, and then these are just going to spit out soldiers, and then hopefully saving until you've got your Balmor in hand. Don't always play this straight away. Sometimes it's better building your army, then playing this, and then casting your 1-drop spells and getting that win in that way. You don't need this turn 2 because you won't have many creatures on the field, so it's always a good card to keep back a little bit as well. More trying to find cards, Reckless Impulse, great for the deck as well. And this deck is another aggro deck, but going the Izzet colours and going wide, and still with that really cool burn package. And a lot of cards transfer over into the other decks. So if you're a beginner player as well, your Monetary Swift Spears, your Play with Fires, your Stoke the Flames, Lightning Strikes are going to be very good in red X type of deck. So red, blue, red, green, anything like that. These are going to be really good staple cards for you. Now we go to 7 rares, and it's a new iteration of Mono Blue. Mono Blue is a top meta deck, very annoying to play against. You will just get some straight quits when you just play your first two islands and then counter a spell. Honestly, you get some easy wins with it. Now the rares in it is the class card of this deck, Haughty Djinn, star 4. Power and toughness equal to number of instant sorceries in your graveyard. It runs a lot of 2-drops and a lot of 1-drops. 8 creatures, 30 non-creature spells. It runs a lot with a CMC average of 2.6. It runs 22 lands in this, but that is 4 of your rares there. 2 of the others are Silver Scrutiny. You can attempt to play this at flash as well if the X is 3 or less, or bigger on your turn if you really need to draw cards as well. Then we have a single of Otawara, the last rare in the deck. Great as a little spell. If you want to save yourself 1 rare, drop this. But like I say before, all the stats have been coming with the decks as they are. But this, this could be droppable and add in another on it if you do want to save that 1 more single rare, I'm pretty sure. So this is Counter Spell Happy, Essence Scatter, 2 of, counter target creature. We have Make Disappear, full 4 of, counter unless they pay 2. We have 4 negates. We have 3 Aratai Scorn as well. The deck is just so frustrating to play against, which is why it's at the top, because it just gets results. Fading Hope to bounce your creatures that you want to save, your Haughty Djinn. Consider, draw more, shore up protection, impulse, find what you need. The mono blue deck, as we well know if you've been playing Arena for a while, is just very good. Adding in the few extra cards like Essence Scatter coming in now, shore up for a bit of protection, and just going more counter heavy on finding this deck. And then more card draw with Thirst for Discovery that works well in a basic land deck, because we've got 21 basics and only 1 rare land in there, and potentially we'll just be discarding that 1 land and discarding 2. Tolarian Terror normally just costs 1 because you're just churning out those spells at the start of the game, and you can get this down really early, costing less. And the War 2 easily blocked by a little token, doesn't have trample or anything like that, but still a very powerful creature. If you can get it on early, it's very good. Not much more to say about mono blue. If you like saying island, pass turn, keeping up your counter spells, that's the type of deck it is. Totally different to the other decks that are more aggro, getting your creatures on, getting the attacks in. This relies around 2 creatures, protecting them, drawing all the cards, and countering and stopping anything that opponent gets on. So if that's your type of deck, mono blue is for you. So now we go to the 1 red deck, and it's a configuration of mono red. So there's mono red decks out there. There's so many different configurations, but I found one that literally has 1 rare that has been getting 64, 65, 67% wins, which is really good. I got all the information off look at different sites like Untapped and Ether Hub and everything like that, and I found this deck that was getting some results. And yeah, for 1 single rare, a Squee Dubious Monarch, everything else is common or uncommon. This is a really good configuration of mono red. A lot of crossover spells again, so potentially with a lot of these decks, and what I found them is hopefully for new player beginners or people that just haven't got a lot of wildcards, you want a strong deck. This potentially can give you 3 or 4 with the matter of changing a few cards if you can. It gives you time to build up the rares and wildcards for the other parts of the important parts of the decks, but you might you could definitely be able to get 2 or 3 decks out of these by casting a few rares and mythics, shall we say. So this relies on a lot of burn. Kumanu comes in, play with fire, 4 for 2 damage. Lightning Strike again, they're just brilliant cards. Invasion of Regatha, 4. This is an epic card. 4 damage, 1 damage to up to 1 target creature. So when they're playing their Wedding Invitation, you ping that creature, you kill their creature before it comes to 2/2 when it flips, and then you're doing 4 damage. Very rarely do I attack the Inferno to get the Regatha to get it turned into the Inferno, because I just feel like the deck just doesn't need it. Then you got 4 damage with Stoke the Flames as well. So late game that might be good to you if you can, but to be honest, leave it alone and just keep attacking. The battles, the front face battles that are really good are the ones that get played. Very rarely, do you see them flipped, especially in a deck like this that just wants to do lots and lots of burn. Creatures, same sort of scoundrels in again. The Swift Spear. This one obviously runs Phoenix Chick that can come back from the graveyard, potentially fly in haste. We have Kessig Flame Breather in this one, again, non-creature spells. 1 damage to each opponent. A couple of Kenra in this one. And then the Squee. very good turn 3 play. Comes down, makes more creatures, and keep attacking. It's a card that you can get back from your graveyard as well. And with all these 1 and 2 drops, you know, it's quite easily to get back for 4 mana, exiling them, and then getting another attack in later. Card draw in the deck. This runs Wren's Resolve. Exile top 2 cards of your library until end of next turn. You may play those cards for 2 mana. We see another card very much like that, but this one plays the Wren's Resolve in this deck as well. 22 Mountain and just a whole lot of burn. When you look at the stats of this, it's a 1.9 average, 14 creatures and 24 non-creature spells in the deck. This is probably the most aggro and aggressive deck out of all of the decks, all of the aggro decks that we're playing here. It is a very aggro sort of meta I'm finding at the moment, with the bans, the mid-ranges struggling a little bit because everyone's gone to aggro at the moment, and these gives you a lot of decks to go and play. A lot of the same colours, but like I said, the reasoning for that, like, you know, I'm sourcing a lot of these decks is it will give you hopefully multiple decks in your arsenal. So it does, you know, it does get boring when you get to just play 1 or 2 decks, but hopefully this will help you out and you find it helpful and interesting. So thanks for watching today's video. That was the last deck. I just want to appreciate everyone that stays on the channel and stays to the very end. It really does help. If you want to support me further, there's lots of ways you can do it. You can like the video, of course, if you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment. You can go and become a Total MTG Patreon, link down below. Like I said at the start, you can follow my Cardmarket link. Even just following it and go and have a look at it really does help as well. Or you can become a channel member. But yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you with some more arena action very soon.